Why, hello there. What do I do? Alright, what's going on, you guys? So I wanted to do a very chill, laid-back video today and talk about my camera collection. I'm going to be showing you cameras that I use regularly, some of them that are going to be a little bit more on just like the collector side of things, but most importantly, just to kind of geek out and talk about cameras, because there's going to be digital cameras in here, film cameras, and at the very end, I will be showing you guys some of the more rare cameras that I own that I don't always show on screen just because I don't have a reason to, and most of the time I like to just keep them for myself, but in this video you guys will get to see that today. Now this video is brought to you by Squarespace, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them later on, but for now you guys grab some cameras, grab some coffee, a drink or two, whatever you feel like, and get ready to type up in those comments because I want to know about your camera collection as well. What cameras you guys have, what you use. Let me know those things in the comment section down below, but without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so I want to start off by saying my camera collection has grown way bigger than I ever thought it would over time. I was one of those people who were just always so minimalistic when it came to gear, but over the years something I realized was that, you know, with something as serious as like photography, art, street photography, all of that stuff, you need to have some time for yourself to have fun. And a lot of times the tools that I use regularly to make my work doesn't always make me feel so inspired. So I do have a ton of cameras in here that I like to switch out every now and then just to be able to get out, share a different little experience with each little camera, and really to have fun. So yeah, no judgment zone here. I want to get started first and foremost though with the cameras that I use more regularly because you guys already see these a lot on my channel. So let's start off first with my workhorse camera. All right, so my workhorse camera, which was also my dream camera for a very long time, is this bad boy right here. This is the Leica M6. And the lens that I have on there is a Voigtlander 28mm Ultron version 2 Mark II. So a lot of the images that you see on my Instagram are made on this exact setup. In the past, I had a Leica M2 and I felt like that just wasn't for me because I was trying to shoot more 28mm. And so I sold that off and I ended up getting my M6 with the 28mm Ultron. So yep, that is my main kind of workhorse setup right here, the Leica M6, and that is the first camera in my collection today. Next up, let's move over into my most used SLR. Now there are 3 cameras that I keep on a constant rotation and I just kind of like to play around with them. I don't really use them so much for serious work. They're mostly there to just be able to take out one day, have some fun, come back in, develop the film and see what we get. So let me talk about the first one here, which honestly has been the one that I've been leaning more towards lately, just because I picked it up at a flea market video, which I posted up on the channel as well. All right, so that camera, you guys, is this Olympus OM4T titaniums. I picked this up for $100 at a flea market, which is a really good deal considering that these cameras go for around $300 to $400 online. I picked up this 28mm from a garage sale for like $25, and so total cost for my entire setup was $125. You know what? The OM cameras are so slept on. Now, some of you guys may disagree with me on this. I completely understand. But in my opinion, Olympus cameras, their OM line specifically, like the OM1, OM2, OM3 and so on, they feel like the Leicas of SLRs. Now, granted, there are SLR Leica cameras, but for some reason, the way these cameras feel in my hand when I'm shooting with them, the OM cameras have always reminded me of a Leica. So if you guys were ever trying to pick up a really clean and a camera similar to a Leica in the SLR form, I would definitely recommend the Olympus cameras. They're great, they're small, they're compact, and the best part is you have options for mechanical cameras like the Olympus OM1 or some of the ones that have nice shooting modes like the aperture priority and manual setting in the OM4T. Now the other SLR that I have in my constant rotation is going to be this one right here, the Minolta XD11. Now you guys know I built my channel on Minolta cameras. These were some of my favorite cameras in the past. Until this day, they still are. They have changed a little bit. You know, I once said the X700 was my favorite SLR of all time. As I got to shoot more Minolta cameras, I figured out the XD11 was probably the best Minolta ever made. The shooting modes, the large shutter button right here, excuse me, shutter dial, I should say, combined with the viewfinder and then the focus prism inside, everything just works really smooth and seamless. And the XD11 is probably one of my favorites. It's extremely reliable. Now I have this paired up here with the 45mm f2 pancake lens, and you guys can just see how sweet that setup is right here. So that's the next camera in line, the Minolta XD11. Next up, we have what is perhaps my most used SLR of all time, and that is the Nikon F3. You guys know I am a huge fan of my Nikon F3 cameras. I've had this one, I had the titanium version as well. And over the years, I just realized, this is probably like the best SLR ever made, just from my opinion. It's got that removable viewfinder that I really love and enjoy. So you got a waist level finder inside of there. Another really cool thing about these Nikon cameras, specifically on the F3, is the ball bearing inside of the focus lever here. So, excuse me, not focus lever, the advanced lever. The advanced lever on the F3 has 11 ball bearings. So when you advance it, it is super buttery smooth. On top of that, the camera feels really rugged and really heavy, but kind of in a good way. It just feels like a tank. And you guys know I shoot with this one a lot because I own a couple of different lenses for it. This is the 28mm 2.8, which you can see, beautiful glass right there. But I also have some of the other ones here, like the 50mm 1.4 and the 35mm 2.8, which hopefully you guys can see on the screen. But in terms of my most used SLR, this has to take the cake. And at the end of the day, like I said, this is my favorite 35mm film SLR at the moment. But the next one that I'm going to be talking about here is very special to me because it's the only medium format camera that has stuck with me over the years. I've had the Yashica Mat 124G at one point. I've shot other 6.7s like the RB67 that I kept for like a week and then sold off, didn't even talk about it. But the one that stuck with me is this one right here. Now check this out. This is the Pentax 6.7 MLU. It's the older version, as you can see. If you're just looking for a really solid 6.7 camera, the variance in between each of the iterations are very negligible. Meaning, you can go for one of these MLU cameras and they're gonna be really good still. Now, granted, the 6.7 II has a better grip, etc. It looks more pretty, has the nice lettering as well. At the end of the day, you guys, a Pentax 6.7 to me is still a Pentax 6.7. And so it's reflected in this one right here because this is the MLU, which has to be the older one. And the lenses that I have for is the 105 2.4. At a recent trip to Morro Bay, I don't know if you guys could see that, I damaged the front lens filter ring. That kind of sucks because I wanted to put more filters on there, but that's okay. I heard you can kind of fix that. But as for my other lens, I have a 55mm f4, which acts as sort of like a wide angle 28mm equivalent, and I really love that as well. I use the 6.7 for portraits, mostly landscapes though, and just anytime I want to go out and slow down and really take in the landscape. So that is what I like to shoot with for medium format, the Pentax 6.7. But you know what, let's get into some of the more rare cameras, my street photography cameras. I'm really excited to talk about that. All right, so before we move on to the rest of the collection, really quick, I want to talk about the sponsor for today's episode, which are the good folks over at Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online website and run your business. Now, any photographer who is creating their brand, or even if you just want to solidify your name, you need to try out Squarespace and build your website. With Squarespace Blueprint AI and SEO tools, you can choose from professionally curated, award-winning layouts that allow you to set up a website within minutes using their state-of-the-art drag and drop system. They also offer flexible payment options, making checkout simple for you and your customers. And one of my favorite features are the online stores and e-commerce shops that you can create to sell your work or your prints. So if you feel like you have that creative eye and there's an aesthetic that you are trying to produce within your own brand, you need to try Squarespace. I highly recommend it. Like I said, I've been using them for 5 or 6 years now. And if you want to get started today, they're going to give you guys 10% off. Just use my coupon code KingJapes at checkout, or just use my link under the description below, and you get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website. Huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. All right, so now that we are back, you guys, I want to start off first with my point and shoots. Now, my point and shoot film cameras are very special to me because they are cameras that I like to take out when I don't want to have a high pressure camera around. High pressure camera for me is like the Leica or like an SLR, anything that's really big. If you want to go out and just have fun, I take a point and shoot, and these are the ones that I stuck with over the years. First and foremost, a very special camera to me is this one right here, the Konica Big Mini. Now, the reason this is special is because I got it from one of my best friends, Gable. He purchased it a while back and then ended up selling it to me, and he was basically gave it away to me for free at the price that he gave it to me for. So, I promised him I would never give it away. It's a sentimental piece between he and I. It's just one of those things between a friendship that you just never want to get rid of. But apart from that, the Big Mini has really good image quality. The lens on here is extremely sharp, man. It's a 35mm 2.8. And I'll tell you what, it trumps, in my opinion, the Olympus Stylus, which is a pretty big thing to say because the Olympus Stylus cameras have a freaking humongous cult following, which I understand because they're great cameras as well. But if I were to choose between a Big Mini and like an Olympus Stylus, the 3.5 version, I would still probably take the Big Mini for sure. This is typically my go-to point and shoot, but the runner-up is actually very similar to the Big Mini. Next one up here is the Nikon L35 AF. Now, over the years, if you've watched my older videos, I have raved about this camera so freaking much. The lens on here is really nice. It's a 35 2.8. The body of the camera is a little bit larger than the Big Mini, so, you know, I have slightly large hands, I'd say. And for larger hands, this is a point and shoot that actually fits nicely. Now, what's funny about this specific camera is that it has a little bit of a quirk. So when you open up that lens element right here, boom, lens cover opens up and you take a picture, it'll click. There's a weird glitch in the camera, so you have to give it a little smack. Now you can start taking pictures regularly. I know it's a little weird, it's not ideal. Eventually it'll probably break down on me, but that's why I don't like to shoot it too much. It's a very special camera to me. I made a lot of great memories with the L35 AF. But more recently, I have picked up the competitor to one of my favorite point and shoots, which is the Olympus XA. I'm not gonna show that one because you guys know that is like my go-to rangefinder compact point and shoot. But check this out, the next one up is the competitor to that, the Canon M6. Now, the Canon M6 is a little different. It's an autofocus camera, and rather than it being like a wind camera, this thing has auto advance. So, you know, it's a great camera. It's very similar to the XA, where you can kind of take the flash off with one single button like this, right? And it would be cool if you could do like an off-camera flash, right? That'd be freaking insane, but you can't, of course. It has to be connected in order for it to work. I love the Canon M6. I thrifted this a long time ago, gave it to my buddy Bert, Compact Camera Club. He kept it for a couple years, and then literally earlier last year, I asked him like, hey, do you have the Canon M6 from a while back? And he was like, yeah, and I just asked to buy it back, and boom, ended up right back in my hands. So great camera. I love the results that I get from this. I shot this in New York a few times, and it's a really, really nice camera. You know, you really can't go wrong with this one as well. All right, so the next two cameras that we have in front of us here are DSLR styled cameras, or I should say SLR, excuse me, because they're both film cameras, but check this out. We have here on the left side, the Canon Elan 7, which is very similar to like a 5D kind of shape to it. I like to pair this up with a 40mm 2.8, nice little pancake setup, very similar to the Canon EOS 3 that I used for professional work a long time ago. And then on my right hand here, I have my favorite Minolta autofocus camera, and this one is the Minolta A7. Now, the Minolta A7 has a ton of insane features. Like, look at the backside of this thing right here. You'd think it's a digital camera, but this thing is a pure film camera, as you guys can see by the back door opening up right there. Now, I have a couple of different lenses for this one right here. The first one is going to be this Vivitar Series 1. Oh, holy glare. Let me try to zoom in on that bad boy right there. It's a wide angle lens. This is a 19mm to 28, I believe. Oh, excuse me. This is a 19 to 35mm lens, which is cool because wide angle landscapes on a freaking camera like this, pretty interesting. Never seen a wide angle field of view inside of a old school SLR style body. But of course, I also have the 50mm 1.4, which is like the gold standard for these cameras, like the Dynex cameras, as well as the 70 to 210 beer can, which is extremely, extremely fun to use. So, all right, so now we're gonna move on into some of the digital cameras that I have, as well as some of the more rare cameras. And I wanna take a little bit more time talking about these because they have really interesting stories behind them. And that's part of the reason why they have made it into my collection. The first one here is gonna be the Canon SD1000. Now, this Digicam changed the game for me. And you know what? If it wasn't for Gable showing me the beauty in these smaller cameras, I do not think I would be using them, because honestly, I used to bat my eyes at them and just be like, whatever, right? Just don't even pay attention to it. But I'll tell you what, Digicams are so fun. So that is the first one right here, the Canon SD1000. It's really my go-to Digicam. I love the boxy shape of it, how small it is, and when you're going out to a rave or just like the freaking parties and clubs or whatever, this is the camera to take with you. Sticking to the Digicam theme, we have another Digicam right here, and this is the Canon SD1300 IS. Now, I want you guys to take a quick look at the camera because I don't know if you can see it, there's a lot of Sharpie marks on it, right? I did not actually buy this camera. Folks, this was given to me by some of the crew members at the Darkroom Lab. When I was in San Clemente for an event, I think it was the release of the Harman Phoenix launch, some of their employees grabbed a marker and, just really went to town on this, putting their own names and signatures on it. And man, I cannot tell you how much I appreciated that small gesture of not only getting me a camera that they know that I love, but being able to put their names on it and, really get their identity on here. It makes me feel very, very happy and connected. Also, really nice blue. Look at that. All right, so moving on into the main 3 digital cameras that are used for street photography. Now, I don't own a digital Leica, mainly because I just never got one. Leica, sponsor me, please. I need it. I'm just kidding. The first camera in line for my street photography digital cameras is this one right here. This is the Ricoh GR3, which was actually given to me by Ricoh. Back in the day, they sent this over to me to kind of test out, make some videos about, and I really love the camera, you know, not just because they sent it to me, but it was one of my favorite cameras coming from the Ricoh GR2. They made major improvements with the megapixel count coming up to 24 from 16. You also had snap focus built in, as well as some form of stabilization as well that worked well for taking photographs at night. To be honest, it actually really helped out. But the GR3, at the end of the day, in my opinion, is still one of the greatest street photography cameras. Obviously, it comes with a couple of caveats, like, you know, this back button problem, which is unfortunate, but it happens. And I think one of the greatest things about the GR systems that people often get wrong is that they're actually durable. Despite, you know, some of those little inconveniences like lens dust getting in and, you know, that back wheel. I don't think I've ever met a GR user that said they've had their camera break down. Have you guys? You know, it could just be me, but that's my perspective on it. I could be wrong. I'm usually wrong anyways, but let me know in the comment section down below. Do Ricoh GR cameras really keep up? I don't know. I know the GR2s do, but what about the GR3s? But there you go, Ricoh GR3. As you can see, I got it rigged out here with a lens hood, viewfinder, half case, and some Peak Design straps to attach my favorite straps. Moving on to a camera that I had just picked up recently. This one, folks, is the Fujifilm X-E1. Now, the X-E1 is a camera I've wanted to get my hands on for a very long time because it reminds me a lot of the Fuji X100 cameras. Now, as you can see, I have the 27mm f2 right here. Oh, excuse me, not 27mm. This is the 18mm f2 lens, which is a 28mm equivalent. I got the square hood lens hood on here as well. And you guys might be wondering, why do you have a camera from like 2014, 2015? And I'll tell you why. It might be old, but I'm telling you right now, you cannot count it out. The images that I made on the X-E1 have been some of my favorite. If you guys watched the Hawaii video, I had a couple of images from my X-E1 make it into that video, and it's just a great camera, 16.3 megapixels. And I like the fact that it is an older camera, so if it breaks down one day and I drop it and it just gets completely ruined, hey, it's like, it's an old camera, whatever, just move on. But I'll tell you straight up, the X-E1 is extremely fun. Shout out to Ali for putting me on this camera, by the way, because without her video, I would not have been able to get this one. Ali, 112 cameras. Sticking with the Fujifilm system, we have here the Fujifilm X Pro 2. Now, I really wanted to upgrade to the X Pro 3, but I just couldn't really justify a reason for doing that, mainly because I don't really use the X Pro 2 that much anymore. At one point I did, but ever since I got my Leica, I really have been shooting more film, and the X Pro 2 has kind of taken the back burner. But regardless of that, the lens that I have on it is the 23mm f2, and as you guys can see, I have put this thing through some tests, man. I've taken this thing everywhere from New York, all the different areas around the country, Chicago and Seattle, you know, the list goes on and on here. But when it comes to Fujifilm cameras, and you know, I still use this for professional shoots here and there, the X Pro 2 still holds its own, and it's an older Fujifilm camera. And you know, maybe if they come out with the X Pro 4 sometime in the near future, then I will pick that up. But for now, the X Pro 2 for me is still a great camera. So moving on from the digital cameras here, the last two cameras are gonna be some of the more rare ones in my opinion, not because of price or anything like that, but mostly because the use case for them are gonna be extremely slim. And I'm gonna show you exactly here why, but I just cannot get these out of my collection. They are so fun to shoot, and I really want to make more videos about them later on. But check this out, you guys. The first one here is the Canon SureShot A1. It's a point and shoot 35mm film camera, as you guys can see right here. This entire camera is built around this underwater housing. I don't know if you guys can see the rubber gasket O-rings that are literally lining the back wall of this camera right here. But what's great about this camera here, folks, is that it has double functionality. When you're above ground or above water and you just want to use it as a point and shoot, you can do so. It just acts like a regular camera, and it has a 32mm 3.5 lens that is actually really nice and sharp. But really what this camera is made for is underwater photography. So if you're out snorkeling, scuba diving, or maybe you're just down there exploring, you could take this camera with you and snap some pictures. I used this in Hawaii. I don't know if you guys seen it in the Hawaii video. There were a few frames from there that I got some really fun and cool shots with. And you never really have to really worry about the camera getting damaged because it's all protected inside of this waterproof housing. So the Canon SureShot A1, you can actually pick these up for a really good price still. I think like maybe 40, 50 bucks maybe. Not a lot of people are really talking about it, which is a good thing. Definitely something you should add into your collection. And as for my last camera in this entire collection video, it is in fact a panoramic camera, but it's not an X-Pan, it's not a wide lux. It's this bad boy right here, the Horizon 202. You guys might be wondering, like, why does that thing look like a Frankenstein camera? And I gotta say, first and foremost, shout out to Kazu from New York. You know, we went on a photo walk just for a little bit and he asked me like, have you ever shot with a panoramic camera? And I told him, no, you know, I've never really got one. I wanted to get an X-Pan. And he was like, yo, check out the Horizon 202. I got back home in the Bay Area, I went online, found one in Japan, had it shipped straight from Japan to my house. And putting my first few rolls, it was quite an adjustment because I just never really knew how to really frame a panoramic camera. But as I got to put more rolls through it, I really found that it is extremely fun to shoot. So check this out. This is what the camera looks like. It has this really interesting swing lens, which basically once you hit the shutter, literally records from one side of the film to the other side here. And you can set it to different shutter speeds. Like that was, I think, 2 seconds right there. If you want to set it to something more faster, here we have 1/250th of a second. As you guys can see, it's pretty fast. But the interesting thing about this camera is the way it basically functions is with no battery. It's completely mechanical. Everything is done on this wind up. So as you wind it, it also cranks that thing all to the other side and recharges up the camera. Now it's funny because when you shoot this camera, you can't shoot it traditionally like this. Because that lens essentially wipes from left to right, it's gonna get your fingers in frame. So the way you have to hold this camera when you are shooting it is gonna be like this. So when you see me out on the street, man, taking pictures with this thing, I'm gonna look like a straight up dork because I do in general already, but it's such a fun camera though. And if you really get to use it in the street, you can get some really, really fun frames. But that is the last camera in my collection. It may not be the most exciting collection or it may not be the most extravagant, but these are all cameras that I really, really enjoy. And I'm realizing over the years, you know, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality and what it can bring to the table for you and, you know, the different tools that you have and how they can benefit your photography. Thank you guys for tuning into this video though. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section down below, what cameras do you have in your collection? I'm gonna turn the mic over to you. It's your turn. Comment those down below. But that's gonna wrap it up for me. I'll see you guys in the next episode. As always, Minolta Gang.